So are you ready for terror? Are you ready for a seductive night of absolute horror with the blood-sucking undead? Well, welcome to Fright Night. In a quiet Midwestern town, teenager Charlie Brewster loves his horror movies as well as his girlfriend Amy. But an unbelievable terror has just moved in next door in the form of Jerry Dandridge, who just happens to be a vampire. Worse yet for Charlie, Dandridge knows that he knows what he is and will do anything to keep it a secret. When absolutely no one will believe his wild claims of who the charming Jerry Dandridge really is, Charlie turns to his idol and washed-up horror TV show host, Peter Vincent, to help him battle the creature of the night. Yet things continue to go badly for Brewster when his persistence brings his friends into danger, as Dandridge lusts for Amy and threatens to drain the life from everyone he cares about. Now Charlie Brewster and the fearless vampire killer Peter Vincent will have to overcome their fears as they face the most terrifying night of their entire lives. So the directorial debut of screenwriter Tom Holland, Fright Night, was released to cinemas on August 2nd, 1984, and produced on a budget of $7 million, and Holland had gained a certain amount of clout with studios with a couple of respectable writing credits on films such as The Beast Within, The Class of 1984, and Psycho 2, to gain the opportunity to direct his own screenplay. And the whole thing really kind of came about when things didn't go too well with his previous screenplay that he wrote for the film Scream for Help, and really felt that he wanted to take upon the reins of directing his own script and gearing it towards what his vision was for the idea overall. And the whole idea for the film stemmed from Tom Holland thinking about the story of the boy who cried wolf being merged with a vampire tale of a guy realizing that there's a vampire who lives next door, with no one actually believing his stories, but he kind of didn't get as much traction with the idea as possible until a studio executive kind of suggested the idea of what the kid would do in the situation would probably go to someone like Vincent Price, and that just sparked Tom Holland's imagination to push forward to flesh out the entire idea for Fright Night. And as a directorial debut of a fairly seasoned screenwriter at this point, I think Fright Night demonstrates some very interesting qualities to its credit, not the least of which being a very good homage to classic type of horror films and vampire tales. You can kind of see it in the fiber of this film as it goes along. There's just a very good, solid respect paid to that kind of early 30s, 40s, or 50s type of horror films, with just creating that sort of air of mystique and atmosphere, but applying a great 80s sheen and polish to the entire production of the film to give it an update quality while still having a good quality that harkens back to those types of films. It's like you would turn on late night at some point and just like really much enjoy that type of thing, like the films that Peter Vincent very much showcases on his Fright Night television show. In the film, it just has that great quality to it overall, that none of the stuff comes off as cynical or jaded or is kind of setting it up in a certain way. You can see a different heart and charm to it overall that definitely Tom Holland very much finds all the great qualities in those types of films. They give it a little bit of a cheese factor here and there, but still has a great depth of heart and warmth to it. You can just see everything come together with this film, with that type of respect paid to those classic type of horror films. And that warmth really does come together so very well with that cast that is put together in this film. And I think William Ragsdale as Charlie Brewster does a wonderful job creating a very relatable, down-to-earth, genuine type of character that does have his warmth, his charm, but also seems fairly awkward and a little bit off balance, whatnot, being thrown in the face of knowing that there's a vampire living next door to him, threatening his own mortality. And just like, it's great seeing what Ragsdale does with this character, progressing him through the film from that very nice, little bit kind of angsty type of teenager, a little bit here and there with his girlfriend, kind of being a little bit timid, not wanting to go all the way. So there's this interesting quality between those two in the film, but Ragsdale just does a great job of just amplifying, just increasing the sort of manic obsession that Charlie Brewster has going on in this film, just how it escalates a little bit at a time throughout the film, and just see how the character just kind of moves himself towards the point where he's going to become a fairly believable hero that really does at a certain point kind of step up to the game and gets that confidence pulled out from behind the fear that is just wrecking him throughout so much of the film. It is a great thing that Ragsdale does with this character, to just see him so intently driven to a point where it's like he's telling all these people that this is a vampire living next door, telling it to the cops, but he has absolutely no way to really relate this in any type of way where he doesn't come off looking like a complete nut job, which creates some absolutely comedically gold moments in this film, where he's without any kind of subtlety or tact or any imaginative way to really kind of get anyone to really believe anything he's trying to tell them. So just like this amazing performance that Ragsdale puts on this film that completely gets you on his side, because you know going along the film what he's seen, and you know that there is a vampire there. Jerry Dandridge is a vampire in this film, so you're following him on this whole thing, but you just get these great moments in the film where just like, that is so not the way to go about telling people what's really going on here. You could just tell them, there's a serial killer next door, or something like that, and people would believe it much more than outright trying to convince them that there's a vampire next door. But it's fantastic. Ragsdale does a wonderful job balancing the comedic humor of this film and the absolute intensity that he has to bring forth, the conviction that he has to bring in various moments in this film to really just drive home the ideas and kind of motivate other characters forward to confronting this fantastic collection of absolutely evil characters that are just enthralling you throughout this whole film. And just absolutely wonderful what Ragsdale puts in this character, and just brings forth every quality that this film absolutely needed. And it gets supported by some good people in this film as well, because I really like Amanda Bearse in this film. She does a wonderful job as Amy, just being that sweet girlfriend with a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of timidness, but she has great qualities overall to just bring her to a very heartwarming type of level that really kind of brings a synergy and a chemistry between her and Ragsdale in the film that just sparks off very well, that you feel very much for these characters. And some of them are very entertaining, such as Stephen Geoffreys as Evil Ed, who's just this absolutely cackling hyena in the film, just absolutely enjoying every single second. He has to work in this film. Just everything that he does is so delightfully entertaining. Just everything he has going on with his character, it's just a fantastic character that just brings such a quirky, offbeat, strange type of quality. This weird friend that you have that just has all the answers but absolutely will not believe a word you're saying, just thinks you're a complete nut job as well, despite probably being your best friend. It's just a great mix of qualities there with his character. Stephen Geoffreys does a wonderful job with that. And speaking of absolutely delightful performances in this film, Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent is just an absolute wonder in this film. I loved and enjoyed what he put into this film thoroughly, and even more so knowing what he kind of brought together as the backstory for this character, Peter Vincent. Basically, seeing him as this guy who probably once went out for a bit part in a horror film, then got cast as the lead, and then gets stuck into this horror film career that he had, playing the same role over and over and over again, stuck in the same thing for years on end, long lines of playing the same loathsome character in so many of these films, and just being a pitiful son of a bitch that just gets stuck into this terrible career of just all these cheap, low-grade horror films. And just like everything that I read about what Roddy McDowall forged for this character was just absolutely wonderful. I just loved the depth that he put into this thing, and just kind of seeing him as a bit of a pitiful character, and you could really see some of that come out in his performance. They're just very subtle things that are done with the screenplay, the direction, and McDowall's performance here to just bring so many little qualities together with his character that Obviously, first you get him introduced in the film just to the television set on his Fright Night television show, and just getting that sort of very theatrical quality that he has that carries you so much throughout the rest of the film and does create that endearing charm about him that he just kind of overplays things in the right ways to just create a very different type of character that just seems a little bit beyond reality in a certain place. That this guy does kind of live his own sort of heightened world in a certain way that you definitely see that he kind of, when he has other people around, he just kind of tries to pump himself up a little bit more and try and make him feel more important and trying to like seem like he's a much more affluent type of actor or whatnot. But you see the little moments in this film where he is a bit of a guy who's down on his luck. He's getting evicted from his place. He's been fired from the television show, and he's just actor, just completely washed up and just has nothing else to go for himself. And he seems just a little bit pitiful in a certain way, but it brings out so much of that wonderful, beautiful quality in this character that Roddy McDowall was just so fully immersed into just the full heart of this character. It just poured out on screen with his performance, and he has some wonderful emotional scenes in this film where you can just see the emoting coming through every fiber of his being. He is just bringing everything he has into the table of this character, just everything he has to every moment, every fiber of this character, just so wonderfully, immaculately put together with his performance. I absolutely love Roddy McDowall and everything I see him in. He is a wonderful actor that unfortunately we did lose several years ago, but it's just wonderful going back, watching any of his body of work, and just seeing the care that he put into roles like this to actually make it so much of an endearing thing to himself, make it something that he cared so much about, to put that much effort into it, and just an absolutely wonderful, charming, magical character that I think he put together, and just absolutely wanted to move this character forward, revisit it time and again, but obviously only got one other chance with the one sequel this film got, and unfortunately plans to get a third film produced with him and Tom Holland and William Ragsdale. Really met a very poor end in a certain way, if you want to read up on that, but he tried and things didn't go very well. But fact of the matter is, Roddy McDowall just made a fantastic stamp on this film to just own this character so very well, that was named after two great horror legends in Hammer horror film, actor Peter Cushing and the wonderful Vincent Price himself, creating Peter Vincent, which is mentioned in the film that it's not even the character's real name, which is another great little detail that is added in to the character. Just so many, the attention to detail is so wonderful with what all the actors were able to put into their characters upon Tom Holland's request to have them develop their characters, put something together for their backstories to help deepen and enrich their characters overall. And there's no shortage of anything with the wonderful Chris Sarandon putting together a fantastic performance here as the character of Jerry Dandridge. And just wonderful that I did get to meet Chris Sarandon at the Days of the Dead in Chicago a few years ago, and I got my photo taken with him, but I didn't get much time to talk with him personally. But he did have a panel at the con there, and he did talk very fondly about Fright Night, saying, first off, that it was one of the best scripts he had ever read at the time, and is very fortunate too, because he didn't have a very good experience on the previous horror film he worked on called The Sentinel, and it had a slight aversion to it until he actually did read the script and was very excited about it. And just the fact of the matter was, he really just had such a great fondness for this film and just had a great experience working out the great collaborations with all the artists on this film to create a very full and rich environment of creativity with everything that had to be put together with this film. And he added some interesting qualities into his own performance, his own character here. You'll kind of notice in the film that he's always eating fruit. Well, that's because in Chris Sarandon's research into bats and everything, he kind of discovered that there happened to be fruit bats, and figured there'll probably be some fruit bat DNA in Jerry Dandridge. So it's like, it just gives him a little bit something more to work with than just dialogue. It gives him a little bit of extra character to add into their performance. And it's a very smart thing that he did there. Just give him another little trait to really kind of identify himself and really work very well in the film. But talking about the performance of Chris Sarandon itself in this film, he creates such an exceedingly charming personality for Jerry Dandridge that is immensely inviting and completely compelling, meshed up with the oozing charisma that he has exuding off himself in every single frame that he is on screen in this film. He creates such a great aura of sensuality and seduction and mesmerizing quality overall with the character of Jerry Dandridge to just make him such a massive force in this film that just creates that mystique, that atmosphere in this film that completely just draws you so deeply into his performance, into the character, into everything he's doing, along with so much great, like I said, charm that just completely makes him an unassuming figure with these slight undercurrents of that frightening thing that we all know is there. So these great little moments where he's just kind of playing the subtle beats in the film very, very well, but also he is immensely frightening in this film as well, bringing the same smooth, suave quality to the terror of this film as he does the sensuality as well. Just so many moments in this film, like when he slips into the Brewster house at night and he starts creeping around and creeps up behind Charlie, and just that confrontation between them, it's easy. He doesn't have to overplay the moment. It's just that nice, tight, scary type of thing where you just have the monster right with his hand around your neck, just playing it at the right degrees and the right measures to create a very frightening and haunting type of character here that I think Chris Sarandon just delivers it on every single level at a maximum percentage. I think it's just a wonderful performance. It's just probably one of my favorite vampires of all time because I just love, like I said, the seductive aura that he brings along with the terror and the frightening qualities and just the smoothness that he works so many of the scenes in this film as just an overall package that just brings together fantastically wonderful, entertaining, scary, and alluring character overall. Chris Sarandon is definitely an actor I look at with very high regard, and he's an exceptionally talented one at that, and really just showed that he, again, like so many other people in this film, brought all he had into this character, making little details here and there to really kind of flesh it out and make a much richer and deeper character overall, especially when you have like the added part where, which it wasn't this case, that Jerry Dandridge recognizes Amy as someone who looks like a woman that he loved ages ago, and adds that extra depth of that lovelorn quality that he has deep within him, along with all the lust and all these different qualities that just makes him a fantastic character that I think Chris Sarandon just nailed so deeply much. It is absolutely one of my favorite performances from him, and I think is one of the best vampires we've gotten, especially in the 1980s. One of the top tier ones in my opinion. I think everyone in this cast also has fantastic chemistry. You get great stuff between Chris Sarandon and Jonathan Stark, who portrays Billy Cole. They have this great thing going on in the film that kind of implies something here and there that's just very, very, very subtle, but there's this great connection between these two really kind of sinister type of characters that just have a wonderful kind of quality between them. Just so much implied between these two guys, but just feels so perfectly comfortable between them, and obviously between everyone else in the cast. Wonderful, perfect, dead on the mark chemistry for all the humor that goes along with the terror and the fright and the drama that unfolds between all these characters. Every single beat flows so beautifully between all these talented cast members that just bring everything forward to the right degrees, the right measures. So much credit given to Tom Holland to direct all these actors so exceedingly well and get them delved into the characters so much and help them develop them so much as well, to make them rich, to make them glow on screen so much, to just feel like these are full characters that you can delve into and really enjoy so much. Even the evil ones just feel like they have so much depth to them, so much history to them, and just have such a great entertaining quality with every single character that is put forth on the screen, inhabited by great actors that just loved what they were doing and loved working with the artists that they got to work with on this film. And I feel the look of Fright Night from cinematographer Jan Kaiser is a very good one, with a lot of smoky atmosphere that is very prevalent in so many moments of this film. And it's really coming off with a very good sort of neon 80s panache to it. It just has these great little moments of sort of neon purple, pink type of highlights in certain moments. It just gives it that punch, that flair to it. And especially when they get into that fabulous nightclub sequence where you got such a vibrant explosion of color, just absolutely fantastically gorgeous. And it's why I had Chris Sarandon sign a still from that very scene over here. Absolutely loved that moment in the film when you get Jerry Dandridge enticing Amy over and just having that sensual dance. It just captured so very well, and such an amplified quality to it with everything that's put together with the cinematography and the mood of it overall. I think a lot of the stuff with the cinematography in Fright Night is very, very good, but they do use as much as they can with a $7 million budget to really make the film look as good as it can, with a very good polished type of feel, but it's not as dynamic as I say, like as I did with The Lost Boys, saying that that film very much looked like it exceeded its budget with a lot of very inventive type of things to use to its credit. Fright Night definitely feels like it is a bit restricted by its budget, and possibly from a first-time director who probably is just trying to focus things and get the best quality from what he has available to him, and not having the most dynamic and flashy style to him, but obviously employs a good cinematographer here that really can capture some very good images and really kind of splash some color around, where it really kind of benefits the atmosphere and mood to this film. Like I said, the smoke and fog with this film really just adds so much to it overall to just give it a fantastic quality overall that just amplifies, like I said, the mystique, the sensuality, the seduction, all these things really come off very well. And just like some of the production qualities, I think do add to the charm of the film, where you get some things in the film, like near the climax of the film, where you get the stained glass window gets broken out, and it just, you can see it's probably a painted backdrop back there, but like I said, it is a bit of an homage, this film, to sort of like 40s or 50s horror films in a certain way, and so some of those production qualities are very much akin to that type of thing and add to the flavor, the charm that is really going for. It just feels like it's not trying to hide it so much. It's trying to really kind of add that to the character of the piece overall, which I can really kind of respect. It just adds to that. It just feels like it doesn't feel out of place. It just feels like it fits very well in so many cases. It just feels like that is exactly what Tom Holland is really trying to capture in this film. And I thought he did a very good job of doing that as well. And the music of this film is very good. Very solid mid-80s type of score from Brad Fiedel, who did The Terminator prior to this, and does a great job actually using synthesizers and electric guitar to create such a seductive score in this film, where a lot of things would probably use kind of a saxophone type of thing or stuff like that. He just uses a wailing guitar and some ambiance to just grab you into, like I said, the aura this film has going on throughout its entire runtime. I would so much love to get my hands on this score, but unfortunately the soundtrack for Fright Night has been out of print for years and just almost impossible to find it in its complete form. But some of the tracks from the songs contribute to the film, which do add so much to the flavor of this film and just creates some great moments in that nightclub sequence. Can be found here and there on certain albums or whatnot, but just the score on its own, I think, just adds so much to this film overall. It just, like I said, it just absolutely puts together that aura of seductive quality that just absolutely just has that thing going through it the whole film, and just like, I love it. Absolutely, positively wonderful type of stuff put together by Brad Fiedel, who has very few credits to his name because he left the industry sometime in the 90s because he kind of get fed up with the whole Hollywood studio system, but the few scores that he's put together is just absolutely fantastic type of work. Between the two Terminator films he put together, this is another one of those fantastic scores. They just absolutely hit right on the money. And the effects of Fright Night were headed up by the great Richard Edlund, who I just talked about in my Big Trouble in Little China review, and he had just come off of making Ghostbusters prior to Fright Night, and working on that film with its much larger budget allowed him to work out a lot of the kinks and stumbling blocks going into a much smaller budget film to be able to create all the effects in a much more efficient type of way. But that doesn't mean there weren't still problems and difficulties with the effects that they had to use so much with this film, because there's a lot of long hours putting on a lot of prosthetics, a lot of makeup type of stuff, and a lot of the contact lenses that a lot of people had to wear in the film when they're vampires or other monsters were very, very painful to wear, and it caused a lot of problems, especially with Stephen Geoffreys, who really ended up having some eye issues after having the contacts in for too long and drying out his eyes. And of course there were a lot of, again, long hours sitting in the makeup chair on days where they ended up not shooting stuff. So it's very interesting to go through that very rigorous process and know just how difficult it was doing a lot of this effects work. Even like Chris Sarandon, who was a stage actor, knew how to put on makeup himself, so it did help in certain places with his own makeup, such as when he was putting on the long fingers. But there was a lot of difficulty in that type of way, but still, they came out with some fantastic effects in this film, some very elaborate designs for a lot of the creatures that you see in this film, including the bat creature, which was a holdover from Ghostbusters that didn't actually end up making it into that film. So they decided to end up using it here on the cheap. So they ended up recycling some stuff to the benefit of this film, and still creating some very great, consistently good quality prosthetics and designs for the monsters in this film. The great vampire look, the Jerry Dandridge still has that gruesome type of quality, this great frightening elements to all the creatures in this film. Just creates a fantastic depth to the terror of this film overall, to just see these ghastly type of creatures just coming out of the woodwork in a certain way. Just fantastic work with the practical effects, and some little effects work here and there visually were added in here and there, but not too much, but still came off very, very well. There's some really good mirror gags in this film. I'm a sucker for a good mirror gag, and there's one that Tom Holland feels like he didn't quite pull it off the way it would have been best pulled off, with Jerry Dandridge being in Mrs. Brewster's bedroom. You have that long shot walking across the room, and you don't see the reflection of Jerry Dandridge in the mirror, but it's like one of those things that I've always really enjoyed. Just getting a really good mirror gag in vampire films. Definitely have some good ones, but just some of the effects in this film are just like when Evil Ed gets turned, and he turns into that wolf near the climax of the film. One, that sequence is absolutely one of the best ones in the entire film, because it is genuinely scary type of stuff when you see that wolf just walk out and just start staring down Peter Vincent in that hallway. Just like, it's tense, it's frightening type of stuff, and just see it coming forward in that slow motion type of feel, just coming forward, and just the entire sequence is just absolutely masterful in my opinion, especially when you get into the effects work. Having Stephen Geoffreys go into this full body makeup that took 18 hours to apply, it is so goddamn worth it, because it is just absolutely incredible, and also shocking and startling too, just seeing the demetamorphosis of the character of Evil Ed from this monster, this half wolf, turning back into a man. How the scene is played out between Roddy McDowall and Stephen Geoffreys, the humanity that's on display in that scene, it's just so troubling. It's just a masterful scene in my opinion, between everything that is at work here with the performances and the fantastic creature effects that are just employed in this moment. It's just one of the best scenes in the entire film that just just get you on the terror and just get you scared too. Just like one of those moments of just genuine horror in this film that doesn't go for the laughs, doesn't go for the humor at all. It's just pure horror in this entire sequence that just sticks out so strongly and so very well. Everything in that scene is just absolutely fantastic. And again, as the film goes along, you see the character Billy Cole. You're not sure exactly what the hell he is in the film. It's a very interesting performance by him as well. Just creepy and interesting and kind of quirky and funny too. And just see how he just dissolves into this pile of green goo and everything. I mean, it's not like there's morphing shots or whatnot. It's far too early in the development of effects to do something that ambitious. But you just see how these effects are working when you start cutting back and forth and everything, and just using phases and stages and how things de-evolve in certain ways. It's just very, very good how you get some very just gruesome effects in this film that just enhance all these moments so very well. Just get you creeping and crawling a little bit. And just when you get into the whole thing where Amy turns into the vampire, just have this intense, just insane type of visage upon her face. It just great stuff. That just imagination here that just goes all the way. It just doesn't go so much for subtlety in the makeup effects. It's definitely going very strongly into the horror there, getting some great images that are just going to very much stand out, and just the great effects work in this film. It's just absolutely phenomenal type of stuff. Working on a budget of $1 million just for the effects itself, off of a $7 million budget for the whole film, really just shows that they did a great job in that type of way with every resource that they could possibly put into this. Did a very good job, in my opinion, putting together all the effects that goes into Fright Night that just give you the scares that this film really just builds itself up to, because I think that very much sells you and delivers on the promise of this title that you're going into a very frightening situation at the climax of this film. Just has, again, that great sort of classic type of horror feel to it. Just feels like a house full of monsters. You just kind of, they just come at you left and right and everything. Just like you have no idea what to expect going into it, and just be this ghastly, gruesome type of thing, encountering monsters and the undead and this wolf creature, whatnot, from Evil Ed. All these things are just greatly unexpected, but actually pleasantly so. I think just the imagination on display here, and the fantastic, clever story that's put together here as well. I just think everything that Tom Holland really did with this film was a great stroke of magic, and in my opinion, that for a directorial debut, I think he did a really, really good job with this film. I really enjoy watching this film again and just discovering it all over again. And it's kind of a shame that the only Blu-ray release we've really gotten for this film, at least in the United States, is a very limited release version from Twilight Time, which, if you try going online to try to find a copy of this, you're going to pay between $60 and $90 just to get a copy of this limited edition run, which initially sold out within 48 hours of its release. But I really would love to be able to see this film in high definition, because I like to see how well some of the makeup effects and creature effects really hold up under that scrutiny, because especially with the makeup put upon Roddy McDowall, even on the DVD, you really kind of tell how thick it is with how they dyed his hair and put the makeup to kind of pale him out on screen. So it's like to see how much some of that would really hold up, but from what I can tell, it does, most of it holds up very, very well. And overall, the film itself holds up really nicely too, that maybe, I don't know, for a modern audience how much it would really connect, but seeing the qualities that I can see in this film, I think it really is a very enjoyable film that does hit a lot of heart, humanity, humor, and just a wonderful, thrilling experience with a great seductive aura wrapped around it. And of course, this did get a sequel that did not perform very well, has some bad reviews, and a terrible release, because, like I said, there were some very ill things that occurred during the development of a third film, which also overlapped with the release of the second film. And I won't get too much into it because it's a very, very downer type of thing, but there's very much a passionate push by Roddy McDowall to get a third film made before something very painful and very bad happened to prevent all that from happening, and by the fact that the release of the second film was really kind of totally terrible. They released it in just a couple hundred theaters, made almost no money at the box office, and really has been largely not treated well since then. I haven't even seen a widescreen DVD release for this film. I don't think Fright Night 2 is terribly great. I don't think it's outright bad, but it does hit the reset button on a lot of things. It kind of go through the exact same story beats of the film over and over again. Of the first film to the second film just feels a little too heavy of a repeat. A lot of the same beats that the first film had, and some other things I don't feel are quite as good or strong as the first film really kind of led on. And of course there was a remake in 2011 which I have not seen, and then it had a sequel which I have not seen, but apparently the sequel recast all the recurring characters from the first film because it's a direct-to-video sequel and you're not going to afford Colin Farrell as Jerry Dandridge on a direct-to-video budget. So that's pretty much all I have. I'm not saying I probably won't maybe possibly see the remake, but I still recommend seeing the original Fright Night because I think it's just a delightfully enjoyable film that probably surprised some people if you haven't seen it already. But fact of the matter is, definitely check it out if you haven't. But if you have, your comments down below are very much highly appreciated about any one of these Fright Night films, the original, the remake, or any of their sequels. Throw it down below. And there was I think there was a video game made, and there was some comic books published under the title Fright Night. So a little bit of something here that got generated from the first film as well. So throw your comments below. Let me know what you feel about Fright Night overall, and just share your thoughts and memories and feelings overall about each one of these things. And if you do think that the remake had some validity to it, some merit, some credit, I'd definitely like to hear that. If there is encouragement to be had to push me forward to go seeing it, definitely throw it below, and thumbs up on the video is always inviting and thankful and appreciated. And thank you guys for sticking around and watching and enjoying, hopefully, what I'm putting forth here in this little series of vampire film reviews. Hoping to get one more done, and should be very different from these two I've done so far. But let's just leave it at that at this point in time. So guys, thanks for watching. As always, be back with a little bit more vampire stuff before moving on to some very strong superhero genre stuff, including a review of Deadpool coming up very soon. So thanks guys for watching. Take care, and bye bye.